And this broadcast brought to you by 106th Street Tire and Wheel. Get your automotive stuff done at 106th Street Tire and Wheel, located in Corona, New York, 11368. We are officially live here at True to New York Sports Studios, featuring Billy the Knowledge Punch, Brian Big Head Zizig, and Lou the Handsome Man DiMartino. How you guys doing tonight? Spring training in full effect. We got Yankees, we got Mets, we got roster moves, we got it all. Billy, what's going on, brothers?
What's up, boys? How's everything going? It is Monday. Spring training is in full effect, and we got a lot to talk about. Brian, how are you?
I'm good, except for the fact that I really think Lou's intro was 2/3 correct about the three of us. And I'm pretty sure I know mine was correct. So, it's up to the audience to figure out which one of the two of you I think, wasn't right.
First of all, let's be honest. If there was a poll right now, it would definitely be that I would be the most handsome out of all three of us. Like, come on. Look at this. Come on.
I mean, if there was a poll right now, you're probably right. The gay community would probably vote you there. Correct.
Just get all my friends to say me that don't know you guys.
Brian, nobody else knows that 5 minutes ago he was looking for his best camera angle, but still doesn't understand that's when the camera's off. But all right, guys, let's get right into it. First thing I want to go through, the new rules. Spring training has brought a lot of changes to the game of baseball. There's a lot of new rules out there, starting with the pitch clock. And I'm going to come right out and say it. I like it. I like the pace of play so far. I like what I'm seeing. I think this is going to be a positive. It's going to take some getting used to, but I think it's going to help the game and help the ratings of baseball. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Lou.
So I am not anti-pitch clock. I like the pace of the game. I do like it. The only thing is that I can tell you right now is that I'm sure that owners and management of baseball stadiums are going to start complaining about this when their normal games of 3 hours to 4 hours are now only 2 to 3 hours, because now they are going to be losing revenue when it comes to food and beverage and gift shops and all that stuff, because they're not in the stadium as longer as they are. Is it going to boost up television ratings? Absolutely. Will they make some of the revenue back on that? Yes. But from a business standpoint, I can tell you right now that baseball teams are going to be losing a lot on their P&L when it comes to stuff inside the stadium, and I'm not too sure how happy they're going to be about that.
I have a little bit of a different take on this, and I mean, I think you guys have heard me say it before. Any time that the Yankees played the Red Sox, especially when they're on Fox or on ESPN, I thought it was sarcasm that Sunday night game would start at 7 and it would say, "Oh, it'll only be on from 7 until 9:30. Then they'll go right into Baseball Tonight and Sports Center." I thought that was sarcasm. They actually expected games to be done in 2.5 hours. Yankee Red Sox games. Guess what? Now, in spring training, you've had 11-8 games, 2 hours, 28 minutes. 11-6 games, the Met game the other day, 2 hours, 23 minutes. This is going to be great. It's going to grow the sport. It's going to grow the fan base. These kids that can't take their eyes off their phone are not going to be able to just stare at their phone in between and miss pitches, because you're going to miss too much. Don't get to a game late. 7:05 start. Be in your chair by 7 o'clock, because if you get there by 7:30, you might have missed 2.5 to 3 innings already. Get there on time. Get there early. I think that's where they're going to make that up, Lou, because the laissez-faire fan, especially the season ticket holder, they'd show up at 7:30 for a 7:05 game and know maybe they'll miss an inning. Now that fan's got to be there a half hour sooner. And you know what? If they're there a half hour sooner, maybe they won't leave in the 7th inning. Maybe if they know that game's going to be 9:15, 9:30, maybe 9:45 being done at a 7 o'clock start, they'll actually be able to stay for the whole game and keep their kids interested.
And I'm with Brian on this, to be honest with you. I am. And I'm with Brian even more, Lou, because of, like you said, I get what you're saying, but I think, number one, in the next TV contract, most every team is probably going to get that money back, because they're going to be making up, the ratings are going to increase. Also, I think during the week, you're going to see more children now being taken to a ball game because, like, all right, I can get them home by 9:30. Now it's not I can get them home by 11 o'clock anymore. So you're gonna get people in the stadium, like Brian just said, earlier. So you know what? They'll spend money when they're there. So the guy that used to go across the street from Yankee Stadium into stands and stay there till after the first inning, he's going to go into the stadium now because he'd missed 2 or 3 innings staying over there. And he's going to spend that money he would have spent in stands or Billy's, he's going to spend in the stadium.
Well, you know what's also going to happen too is that the businesses that are outside the stadium, because the games are going to end sooner, you might get people to go to the bar afterwards because because the games don't end at 11:30, 12 o'clock. Oh, the game ended at 10 o'clock. Let's go to the bar and have a drink before we go home. Like, I'm sure those businesses are super happy with pitch counts and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, you're gonna see, especially like areas like I was just saying around Yankee Stadium, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night games. Those places are going to be even more packed than they normally are.
Right. Yeah. But again, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying that, like, from a P&L standpoint, the way that businesses grow, and maybe this is different, obviously, because it's a Major League Baseball stadium, is that you get people in your building as long as you possibly can. So when that reduces, obviously, you can't do as many things as you might want to, or you might not spend as much.
I get what you're saying, but this is different than your normal P&L business because they can make this money up in their next TV contract, right, which probably will surpass anything they're going to lose on selling an extra hot dog or an extra foam finger because the game was 40 minutes shorter.
Right. And also employees, right? The employee rate will probably go down too. So
if you really
hours.
If you have more kids there, there's much more chance of their kids being at that game now and saying, "Daddy, I want a popcorn. Daddy, I want cotton candy. Daddy, I want this." You have more kids there. There's going to be more money spent. That's just fact. I understand that, these guys drink all this beer and stuff like that, whatever. No. Kids really drive the revenue. They drive the concessions more than the adults do. They drive the sales of, like you said, Lou, foam fingers, jerseys, stuff like that. That's going to drive sales more than the kids being there is going to drive sales more than you're going to lose out on an extra half hour, 45 minutes of there being time in the stadium.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I just think you're going to see in the long run, it's going to be good for the game. It's going to take some getting used to. There's going to be 1 million people cursing when in a clutch moment, their guy gets called for a pitch clock violation, but it's a learning process and it's part of the game. Every other sport has some sort of play clock. Sure. Every other sport controls their pace of play. I know there's some people out there, the traditionalists, they're like, baseball's not a time sport, whatever. It needs to be. It's losing its momentum and it needs to evolve. And that's what this is going to bring.
Right. And you know what, what's going to happen? You're going to get the old time baseball fans, like you're saying, Billy, where they remember going to a game in the 60s and 70s where it lasted 4.5 hours. And I understand that it's super nostalgic, but then again, I'm sure ratings have been going down year by year. And what's the biggest thing that people say about baseball when they go to games? It's boring. Why is it boring? Because people are standing around too much. So I totally get it. I understand.
But Lou, the funny thing is, if you look back to the 60s and 70s, like you just referenced, those games were quicker than the games of the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s.
But that's because now it was okay. Every single time, what would happen to those big power hitters? They take a pitch, they step out of the box, they redo their thing. It would be like a 4-minute at bat for one person every single at bat.
Yeah,
so I get it.
No, there's a lot of different things, and the next thing going on from the pitch clock is the bigger bases. To be honest, I don't even think it's something we're going to notice. I'm watching. I have the Yankee game on right now. Like looking at it on TV, you don't really notice it. If it brings up stolen bases, another exciting factor, good for the game of baseball.
Right.
I see nothing wrong with that. I don't know what you guys think about it.
Brian?
I think it's better for a couple of reasons. One, are the stolen bases going to increase? Yeah, maybe. Two, you're going to see less injuries, less of those guy steps on the first baseman's foot while he's trying to reach for the bag. you're going to see less injuries like that. It gives the second baseman or the shortstop more room to turn the double play to not get hurt. I think it was more done based on injuries, maybe less done. The throwing over rule, I think, is going to impact stolen bases more than bigger bases. I think bigger bases, honestly, is just to prevent injuries. It gives them a wider berth to make cuts when you're trying to stretch a double into a triple. It gives you more surface area of the base to hit. It's just, in my opinion, the bigger bases is strictly to prevent more injuries. That's all.
I think another thing you could see on that too is a lot more first to third, second to home running because the bases are now easier to cut.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you guys on that too. I don't see there being a problem with the bigger bases. I mean, listen, even in Little League, if you guys played Little League ball, whenever you got a hit and you would run to first base, it wasn't that they had bigger bases; they had the extra base, right? The extra base, so that way people didn't get injured. I totally understand. How many times have we seen injuries, bad injuries, of people colliding at home because the base is too small, or people, like Brian said, people stepping on each other's ankles? I don't see it being that big of a deal. And let's be honest, nobody's ever going to be breaking Ricky Henderson's over 1,000 stolen bases. You got to average over 50 stolen bases for 23 years in order to catch up to Ricky Henderson from the start of your career. And that's not going to happen. So
I think longevity wise, it won't happen because of the longevity factor that it would take. But I think you're going to see guys putting up numbers now. I think you're going to see those stolen base numbers increase. I think we're going to see a 50 stolen base season this year.
Oh yeah, like will Julio Rodriguez steal 50 bases this year? Can I see that? Absolutely, I can see it. But is he gonna catch up to Ricky Henderson? Nah, he's not gonna catch up to Ricky Henderson because people just don't play 23 years of consecutive stolen base baseball. I mean, the last guy I remember that would steal a ton of bases and only really steal bases was like D. Gordon, and he's not even in the league anymore. So it's one of those things.
No, but like Brian said, you combined it with the fact of the throwovers. And now a guy, if it's thrown over twice, he can take that bigger lead because he knows that they can't throw over again.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And, that's going to be a much bigger thing. Another thing that I'm a fan of, the ban of the shift.
Love it.
I think it was time to get something done here. And
yeah, I agree.
You get to disagree?
Have we already seen it? The left fielder now all of a sudden playing short right. I mean, we've already seen it. They're going to find ways around it. They're going to play two outfielders with a short right fielder, for the lefties. My opinion is at the beginning of the season when they don't do that, the only thing that's going to increase, is batting average going to increase slightly? Yes. But you know what else is going to increase? Strikeouts. You know why? Now they don't care. Now they can just swing from their back heels and wherever they hit it, pull it, whatever. If they pulled 95% of their balls that they put in play, it's no big deal anymore. I think they'll be swinging from their heels. The home run's going to be cheapened even more. The strikeout's going to go up even more, and I think there's going to be less, believe it or not, less balls in play with the shift being banned, at least at the beginning until they figure it out. It's just, to me, I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it, but at the same time, I get that they felt like they had to do something because batting averages are in the toilet. I just don't know what this is going to accomplish, and I just wait for the other shoe to drop for them to start going to two outfielders for guys that never ever go the other way.
Yeah, it's definitely that is definitely an interesting perspective that I'm curious to see how it does go.
Yeah, listen, the reason why I don't like this shift is because I didn't like seeing four people in the infield all the way to the right side, and then you just leaving the hole like to the left. Like it's not traditional baseball. But I understand where Brian is coming from. But it must be 7. Oh, I have 7:15 alarm now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing that I'm gonna say though is that I'm gonna disagree with Brian about people striking out more. The reason why I disagree with you on that is because I think that people are going to be a little bit more relaxed and not as tense as, let's say, for instance, if the whole left side of the field is open and they feel like they have to hit it that way. Now I feel that they're going to be more relaxed. Joey Gallo might average 220 this year rather than 2-0. You know, like I just think it's one of those things where I think hitters are going to be more relaxed, if anything, because they know that, like, yes, there's no shift and they can move over as far as they can possibly to kind of make it a shift. But I think the batting average is actually going to go up, and that's how I see that.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I just think the strikeout number is going to go up. And to be honest with you, Lou, I really think Joey Gallo has a better shot at averaging 220 bowling than he does playing. So
I mean, you're not wrong.
Think it's going to matter to him. He's going to strike out his every other at bat, every 2.5 at bats ratio, maybe even more. Like I said, because maybe the shift won't be there, and he thinks he can just swing from his heels. I mean, like I said, that's the only concern that I would have banning the shift.
Right.
Definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out. One rule that's not going away that we don't even really need to talk too much about is the ghost runner at second. It's here to stay. The Players Association voted to keep this rule back in. And while I don't love it, I understand where they're coming from. I understand not wanting to play a 15-inning game till 1 a.m. on a travel day. Like, I get burned through bullpens where you got to then start flying guys in, calling the minor leagues in the middle of the night to get your relievers to to the next city for the next day. I get the issues there, so to speak.
But Billy, let me ask you: isn't the whole point? Listen, I'm not opposed to the ghost runner either. But if the games are going to last an extra hour to an hour and a half earlier, then wasn't the whole point of the ghost runner to speed up the process of the game?
Yes, and it's going to continue to do so. And with the pitching, I understand why the players wanted it. I'm not saying I love it. I understand their side of the story, and I understand why we as fans don't like it as well.
The ghost runner was really put in to save pitchers' arms and innings. It's really what it was done, what it was put in to do. And honestly, if you look at all the other sports, football doesn't have a unlimited overtime. They have a 10 minutes and okay, that's it. If you're done after 10 minutes, you're done. There's no, like you said, there's no clock in baseball. Hockey went to, instead of ties, they go to a shootout because you can't just be playing the regular season games where you might go into single, double, triple overtime and then have a game the next day, have a game at 1 o'clock the next afternoon. I mean,
the only sport that does it is basketball, and most times they don't have
5 overtime games. I mean, what we see, we saw one however many years ago in the Big East tournament, Syracuse and Georgetown. That game was, or whatever, it was like 5 overtimes.
5 overtimes.
There's so much scoring in that sport. You don't see games like that often, and in baseball, there's not as much scoring, especially if bases loaded, nobody out, and you're bringing in fresh arms every inning coming from the bullpen because you got 12 or 13 guys back there. I like it. I don't mind it as much. I don't mind it at all anymore, to be honest with you. And obviously the players love it because A, it's not an earned run on the pitcher, and B, it's RBIs tacked on to all the stats at the end of the year. So
true.
No, and I get it. And like I said, and my number one reason that I'm okay is that it's not in the postseason and it doesn't belong there. And I'm glad. I'm glad they've differentiated that. Nobody wants to see a playoff game end on something like that.
Yep.
No, and playoff
hockey, right? Nobody wants to see a hockey playoff series done in a shootout.
And in a shootout.
Yes, it's the same thing. You know,
same thing.
No, I think they got it right with that. 100% they got it right with that.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of getting things right, we're going to get into the Yankees now. And we have to figure out what the Yankees are going to do to get the shortstop position right. As I'm sitting here and just watch Volpe get another hit. I mean, he's now hitting 320 on the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah
he didn't tell you the little meme I sent to him though. I sent him Willie Mays Hayes, you know. He's hitting 320 off of guys will be begging groceries.
The groceries.
I mean, listen, it's great. Listen, Volpe, you want to start him there, whatever. I mean, to me, it's IKF. It's going to be IKF. It's got to be IKF. Volpe's got it's great, but I mean, half these guys now are going to the baseball classic. I don't care what he hits in the next 2 weeks. It's not going to matter, to be honest with you. It really isn't. He's not going off of any guys that are really going to be on too many major league rosters going forward.
See,
And
but
however
no,
good he hits,
that's
it's not going to
that's
matter.
where I'm going to disagree with you now, because at the start of games, he's facing major league pitchers getting their work in. He's not doing this in the sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth innings of spring training games off guys from the California Penal League. He's doing it against major league pitchers
That have been pitching for 2 weeks.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe the Yankees are going to give Volpe the starting shortstop job coming out of spring training, barring something drastic like injury-wise happening. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think the Yankees have a lot to think about. And I don't understand. I don't believe the Yankees really feel they can go back out there this year and on opening day have Josh Donaldson, Aaron Hicks, and IKF all in that lineup again.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was, though, Billy. I mean, listen, not for nothing. I know that they were talking about putting IKF, practicing him in the outfield too. I don't know if you read that article, but about putting him in the outfield. But my thing is that I would love to see these young kids start, but the Yankee way is not going to allow that. IKF will be the starting shortstop, and honestly, Volpe is probably going to start in AAA. That's what's going to happen. In my opinion, that's what's going to happen.
It's going to happen. That is going to happen. But you know what? The same way we're saying,
what's up, Bill?
You want to say it? Bill's going to say it here. Yeah, you know what? So you want to go that route and say the pitching he's facing is not major league pitching? IKF's hitting 111 off the same pitching right now. So you're going to tell me, that's the way they should go? IKF has some mental lapse going on where he can't field the ball. Well, and the one thing that's got me worried is, Lou said it, the outfield. We've heard he was going to play second base. We've heard he was going to play some third base. We haven't seen any of it yet. And now with Glaber out of camp, now is the time we need to see it. And the longer we don't see it and we only see him playing shortstop is the more worried I get that no matter what either of these kids do, IKF is going to be this opening day shortstop no matter what. And I just don't understand why.
Because it's too much. It's too much of a risk to. And I'm not disagreeing with you, Billy. I would love for that to happen. But what I'm pretty sure is that the Yankees are afraid that if they start these young kids early and the Yankees don't win baseball games, they might get too far behind to try to catch up. We all know how the Yankees are. The Yankees are always been that team where if they don't start off hot is when they start making changes. Imagine them trying to make changes when they're only if they're only a 500 ball club 50 to 60 games in. Like, that's what I think they're afraid of.
But it's almost lines. I mean, honestly, it's almost along the lines of, at least if you start with what you're familiar with and you struggle, you can go to them. If you start with a Volpe, if you start with your kids in the lineup and they struggle, where are you going with them? What are you doing? You've started clock sooner. Right. You started clock sooner than they should be. And B, where are you going with them? They're going back to AAA. You're going to just sit them down. You're going to get them at bats down there. You may as well start with the guys that you're going to start with, your IKFs, your Donaldsons. Let them get their fill of at-bats in AAA. And if, and in your opinion, Billy, when those guys struggle, Donaldson, IKF, etc., now you bring them up. Now they give you a shot of energy, as opposed to, okay, we tried them. They're struggling. Now what do we do?
Right. Yeah, and I think that's where the Yankees and even the Mets come from, right?
Absolutely, 100%. We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Right. I mean, we're going to talk about the Mets, but it's the same thing real quick with Alvarez, right? I think Alvarez should be in the lineup because there's no other right-handed hitter that is in that Mets lineup right now that needs more at-bats than Alvarez. But is he going to start in major leagues? Probably not. And it's one of those. It's just one of those things where if you put him up too early and he doesn't produce, it's going to be a Kelenic thing for Seattle, right? Up, down, up, down, up, down, and that's never good for a hit.
The Yankees have been famous for that, though. The Yankees did it with Clint Frazier. The Yankees are doing it now with Florial. That's what the Yankees do.
Right, and they haven't won in years.
No,
and there's a reason for that.
And you know what? And think back to it. Think back to two of the biggest moves at the beginning of the Joe Torre era, at the beginning of the championship era. What were they? Derek Jeter's my starting shortstop, starting the 96 season. You win the 96 World Series and you let the MVP of that series walk away and you put Mariano Rivera in the closer's role.
Right.
That right there shows you there is a time and place to do it. And if you're going to tell me the time and place for one of these kids is not right now in place of IKF, you're out of your friggin' minds.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just telling you that's the Yankees aren't going to do that. They're not going to. IKF is going to be the starter, just like I think Aaron Hicks is going to be the starter for left field for the Yankees.
I believe Hicks is going to be the starter because I don't see anyone getting the chance to really challenge him, and that's the problem. The only person I think that has a shot to get some playing time out of this is Ortega. And if he does, honestly, I guarantee it'll be a platoon. I guarantee you'll see him against some righties, and you'll have Hicks in there against every left-hander. Hicks is getting a share of that left field playing time until he's not, until the first injury or Lord knows what, and nobody's displacing Donaldson. They have probably 3 better internal options to put at third base, including IKF, because defensive, like, if you moved IKF to third base, I wouldn't even complain. But,
right.
DJ,
But the problem is where you're going to put LeMahieu. That's the problem too. You're paying LeMahieu $20 million a year. You're not going to sit him.
That goes right into it, where what we're going to see this week is Aaron Judge in left field.
Right.
And honestly, I'm not against that.
I love it.
I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
You want to know why I love it, Billy? He has one of the strongest arms on the team, and he plays a right field that's the shortest field of one of the shortest fields in baseball. If you have a strong arm, you got to be in the longer part of the ballparks. And Aaron Judge has a fucking cannon.
Exactly. I think Aaron Judge would be better. The Yankees would be better suited, especially at home, with Aaron Judge in left field as opposed to right.
I agree.
As good as he played center field last year, he'd play left even better.
I mean, the only problem is that, like, now you got to move Judge's chambers, I think, to I know he's like kind of an
not
opposite
moving
field
into
hitter.
the bleachers.
But I know that, but I know he's an opposite field kind of guy too. But you can't have Judge's chambers in right field and Aaron Judge in left field the whole time either. Like I don't. I feel like that's kind of contradicts itself.
But I don't think it's going to be the whole time either. I think it'll be because I don't see any situation where the Yankees are going to commit to Stanton being in the outfield regularly.
Mm-hmm.
No, he'll be a couple days a week, Max. That's my opinion.
Right. It's gonna be a combination of Judge, Bader, and Hicks, in my opinion, and maybe Cabrera out there too, with Stanton 5 out of the 7 days being a DH. Yeah. And I get it. And listen, that's one thing, and we're gonna talk about that later too. But Stanton's got to. He's got to work on hitting too. I mean, he struck out way too much for my liking last year, and we need if Stanton is a 270, 260 hitter for us this year, that'll be a huge impact for us, and we know he has the capability of doing so.
I mean, if you guys had a guess, if I asked you right now, give me a number of games you think Stanton plays in the outfield this year.
45.
36.
I'm gonna go between 50 and 55.
That's so almost 1 out of 3. Is what you're saying.
If he stays healthy,
which you won't.
If he stays healthy,
that's why I said 45.
Right, that's why I said 36.
I'm going with an if. If he stays healthy for the entire season, I could see him playing 50 to 55 games out there.
Bill says 62. I think you're way over exaggerating. I'm way more in this guy. Because I'm gonna tell you right now,
he's on the 15-day DL
there is 3 people on this team that are gonna get hurt at least twice and be on this DL, and that is Giancarlo Stanton, That's Josh Donaldson, and that's Aaron Hicks. And they're going to be on the DL. And you know what's going to happen? Stanton, and that's why Cabrera is going to wind up getting some field time in the outfield, because one of three of those guys are going to be on the DL within the first 10 games of the year. It's going to happen. It's like clockwork.
Absolutely. I mean, injuries are part of the game. You also got to watch out with Rizzo with the back again. Hopefully, we don't have any repeats of that. But you know what, guys? Speaking of positions, we're going to get into the Mets right now.
Doggy.
And one of the best hitters, not just on the Mets right now, but in all of spring training, is Ronnie Mauricio. And my question is, I'm going to state the obvious right now, Brian. Ronnie Mauricio is not coming to the major leagues as a shortstop. Where does he play?
If, and this is a big if Escobar struggles at the beginning of the season, he might be able to move over to third base. Might. My opinion is he starts the same way all your guys are going to do. They're going to start he's going to start in AAA.
Oh, absolutely.
He's going to start in AAA. They're not going to start the clock on him right away. You know, these things, though, when you do have an abundance of talent or an abundance of things at a position, they tend to have a way to work out. I mean, you've already seen it with the Mets. They were going to go to a 6-man rotation, right? That was one of the talks that they had, especially at the beginning of the season. Now Quintana's out. Well, guess what? 6-man rotation. Unless David Peterson, you're throwing David Peterson in there, and maybe you're bringing. I mean, we got Senga. We got you're going to want these guys to get some time off. Thank God there's a lot of off days at the beginning of the season. For the older staff guys like Scherzer and Verlander. Mauricio is going to start in AAA. So is Alvarez, more than likely. I mean,
Alvarez is a lock at this point, bro. I feel. I mean, I don't think there's a maybe anymore, barring an injury.
Ideally, your opening day lineup, and we're going to get into Marte too, but your regular lineup for the Mets is going to be Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso. That's going to be your top four, and then you're getting into. You're going to get into platoon situations. You're going to get into DH. Who's going to play, who's going to spell whom when, if Vogelback's not going to be DH or if Escobar struggles or whatever, but your lineup's more than likely going to be against a right-handed pitcher. You're going to see Vogelback probably backing up Alonso. You'll see Kana in there. You're going to see Escobar, depending on whether he's hot. And that guy was the hottest. That guy was the best Met in September last year.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't even close.
Absolutely.
Other than Diaz. I mean, if you want to talk position player, though, Escobar was the best Met last year in September. And I just feel like Buck is more of an old school manager. And I think he has his guys that he's going to rely on, that he's going to back, that he's going to push. And I don't think it's any of the kids yet. So he's going to go with the guys that they're paying the most money to, that he knows that are veterans, that are going to be in the lineup, and he'll spell guys here and there with the kids, but they're not going to get consistent at bats up here, and that's why they're going to start in AAA.
But you see, I mean, a big difference, I'll say, between the Yankees and the Mets in that statement is there, aside from the DH position and catcher, there's no one. I'm okay. Escobar deserves it. Escobar deserves to be the third baseman. Kana deserves to be the left fielder. These guys deserve to be in there. And that's where the difference is to me, where a guy like, I'm sorry, Hicks and Donaldson and IKF did nothing last year to make me feel that way about them. But Escobar, the way he came around, Kana, the way he played, had a particularly solid season. These guys, I want to see them play as a fan, as a baseball fan. But I said this on Twitter today, and I stand by it. The more I watch these Mets in spring training, I want to see Vientos and Beatty at DH over Vogelback and Ruff. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was actually going to get up to also, is that I know we're talking about this kid who's doing great in postseason, but what are you going to do with someone like Beatty if you decide to move this kid over to third? And in my opinion, I'm still going to stand by this. If the Mets are doing well come All-Star break,
I knew you were going here.
You're going to be getting rid of at least one or two of these people that are going to be in AAA, because I still think the Mets are going to go after Otani or something like that.
100%. I was
And
just
they're going to be gone.
I'll tell you right now, if both of them go back to AAA, one of them's going to the outfield. One's going to third base and one's going to the outfield. And I think Beatty would be the more likely one to go to the outfield. But
he's not going to be a Met by the All-Star break anyway.
Now, let me finish. If I had to choose one of the two that are going to be traded in a trade like that, I think it would be Mauricio.
Well, I don't know about that because you haven't really heard much about him, and he's never technically been in the major leagues yet.
Who's the Angels shortstop?
Right now?
Yeah.
IKF.
No, the Angels, not the
Angels shortstop. Oh, I thought you said Yankees. I was real confused. Isn't it that guy from the Simmons?
No. I'm going to look.
The fact that you don't know makes it highly likely that Mauricio would be the one that would be traded for Otani, not Beatty.
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's most likely going to be, if one of them is traded, I think Mauricio is trade bait.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Louis Reningfo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, who the hell is that?
Household name.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay, so you might be right on that. You might be right on that then, because because Anthony Rendon is also coming back, and I
think Mauricio is much more likely to be the trade bait there if it's one of the two. If not, I think that you're going to see Beatty in left field and Mauricio at third base. I think that's a lot more likely, and they could always move Beatty back if Mauricio butchers third base and possibly turn Mauricio into a DH if they really want to keep him.
Right.
If they're really determined to keep him. Yep. But getting on to guys on the major league roster, Starling Marte. We see today that they're saying he's going to play in a game this week, March 10th. They plan on having him in the lineup by Thursday. What do you think we're going to see out of Starling Marte, and how important is he to this team?
I mean, you saw what happened to them last year when he went down. He was really a linchpin in that offense. I understand he's not making as much as Lindor, and he's not the power bat of Alonso, but he really was a linchpin in that order. And I mean, if it wasn't for Escobar, I mean, the Mets probably end up 3 or 4 games behind the Braves towards the end of that run in September. He's going to be big. Do I think he's going to be the be all and end all for this team? No, I don't. I think they have enough now, and they can plug guys in here and there in order to, spell him. I would rather not see a lot of, like you said, Vogelback and Ruff. I would rather like to see the kids there, but you re-signed Vogelback. He's here. He's only batting against righties. Marte's he's a hard one to figure because he's old. And that's what old players do. They get hurt.
Brian, how about this? I'm going to give you my opinion on this, and it's kind of a little bit of the opposite end of the spectrum. I think Marte is important, especially to this opening lineup, because to me, Marte's the guy I want to see hitting fifth, protecting Pete Alonso in this lineup out of my other options. I'd rather McNeil in the 3-hole with Lindor hitting second and Marte hitting behind Alonso than Marte hitting second and Lindor third and McNeil being the one protecting Alonso. I'd rather see Marte in that 5-hole.
I mean, on paper, you technically want I know it's going to be 3 lefties in a row, which is not ideal.
They're never going to do it.
Right.
You're never going to see 3. You're never going to see 3 because of the 3-pitch rule, because then you can bring in a lefty to face 3 straight batters and be comfortable. That part of it will never happen.
Right.
But especially what you can do is go Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil with Alonso, then Marte behind them, and then the DH behind Marte. I think right now, with their options for opening day, with what their lineup is going to look like, that to me is the best lineup they could put out there.
Yeah.
That's the safest lineup they can put out there.
Yeah, I agree.
And, going on from Starling Marte to one of the newest Mets, we got our first look at Kodai Senga. Guys, I liked what I saw. I mean, he went out there his first inning. Yeah, he walked the first 2 hitters, but he went out there right after that, bounced back, and got out Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and an NL Rookie of the Year kind of named Jordan Walker, all in a row. And he busted out that the famous ghost change and got Jordan Walker on it. I mean, I think Senga's going to be good. I think there's going to be an adjustment period. Don't get me wrong. He's not going to come in here and be like dominating right away, but I think he's going to get it. And I think he's going to be a key addition to this team.
I mean, he's arguably the best number 4 starter in baseball right now, and he's never even technically pitched the major league game. He's a number 2 or 3 or maybe even a 1 on other teams that don't have a great starting lineup. So I think him being a 4 for the New York Mets is going to be huge. I mean, well, in my opinion.
I mean, thinking about it right now, Lou, he's the Mets 3. Now that Quintana's out, I thought he was always good. I considered him the 3 anyway. But now definitely, because we don't know how long Quintana is going to be out.
Well, I didn't consider him a 3 because he's never been in the major league.
I get it. But I don't see Quintana being ready for the start of the season. Brian, what do you think?
I don't. Again, we talked about it a little bit before. Ribs and backs are really, really tough when it comes to pitchers and any kind of ball players. I mean, you see these thoracic outlet injuries and all of these other injuries, and they just seem to take forever for these guys to come back. And I don't know how much of the ribs is going to be involved in his pitching motion. I'm going to say this right now, and we're going to mark it because today's March 6th. If Kodai Senga wins 15 games this year for the Mets are winning the NL East. Bottom line, I don't care what the other guys are. If Senga can be that guy behind Verlander and Scherzer, and you're assuming they're going to have, obviously their production's going to go down a little bit. I don't expect Verlander to come back Cy Young 1.7 ERA again. Okay. But if he's a 15 to 16 win guy, 2.3, 2.4 ERA, Scherzer's a 15, 16 win guy, if Senga can match that win total, he doesn't have to pitch to a 2.5, but if he can match their win total, if he can eat innings maybe or maybe not, they do tend to let their starters go a little bit further overseas, a little bit further in Japan. If he's stretched out and he can eat some innings like that, and he can win 15 games, the Mets are going to win the NL East.
I mean, the biggest adjustment for Senga is going to be now pitching every 5th day as opposed to every 6th. That's going to be a big thing. The win total, I definitely agree with you, because getting to 15 in this day and age with what they do with starting pitching is very impressive. So I don't even think he needs to get that far for the Mets to be serious, because as long as he's got the quality starts and he's handing over leads, that's really all I feel you could ask of him. Because if they're not giving him, if they're not letting him go that far, which I think they need to, because with the Mets improved their bullpen, yes. But I think the more you go to that well and the more you don't let these starting pitchers pitch, I think you're going to expose that bullpen. And that's what I'm worried about. And just on a side note, National League East aside, I have a verbal commitment, and I want everybody to know this. Brian will grow the mullet back if the Mets win the World Series. I tried to talk him into...
It's in text.
I tried to talk him into dyeing it blonde and going full Edwin Diaz. I couldn't get that far yet. But I got confirmation he will grow the mullet back if the Mets win a World Series.
Must be nice that you can actually grow a mullet. I wonder what that feels like.
Yeah, Lou, we'll never know.
We'll never know. But you know what? Just to add on to Brian's point, I'm not even going to say that he needs to win 15 or 16 games. I'm going to say that he needs 15 or 16 quality starts. And
absolutely, I'm with you.
I think that's what's going to be the key thing. If you can have him go 6 innings, 3 runs, and was it under 5 hits or 6 hits or something like that? That's when you can do it. Yeah, and I'll go with Ben Franklin out. I can do the Ben Franklin just fine.
Absolutely. But guys, we're gonna go with a new segment here that we're gonna call Hit or Error. I'm gonna make a statement, and you guys are gonna tell me if you feel this is a hit or an error. And we're gonna start it off with this. Roddy Mauricio and or Brett Beatty will make the Mets opening day roster.
Error.
Why?
Just because you got Escobar at third, you got Lindor at short. The way that I see the game is now that there is no more bring up Derek Jeter after the first year of him being in AAA and have him start right away. Like unless it's like someone huge like Julio Rodriguez, right? Like it's one of those things where it just doesn't happen anymore. I believe that's an error, and I think we're going to see both of those guys in AAA at the start of this year.
Brian, what do you think?
I believe it's an error too, and one of the reasons, other than what Lou just said, is I don't think they're gonna have enough time to prove themselves in these next 2 weeks while everybody else is at the WBC in order to change a veteran manager like Buck Showalter's mind about his guys and who his guys are and who he wants his guys to be at the start of the season. It could be if Escobar gets hurt or Lindor gets hurt at the WBC, that you might see them up. Otherwise, I think it's an error.
All right, fair enough. I respect both of those good comebacks. On to the next one. We talked about Volpe. We talked about IKF. But I'm going to say it right now. Oswaldo Peraza will be the Yankees' opening day shortstop.
Error, Billy. It's an error. It's going to be IKF. It's just going to be IKF. Just to go back exactly what I said, they're not going to have these young guys start. If it was up to me right now, Volpe and Cabrera would be in the starting lineup for the New York Yankees to start the opening day.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but explain to me how you could go Volpe, how you could go Cabrera, but you're going to just say no to Peraza? The guy came up, and in the rare action they gave him last year when they finally brought him up, hit over 300. Proved he can play at this level at the end of last season.
So did Iggy 2 years ago when he batted 360 in spring training for the Yankees and had 7 home runs, and we all thought we found our New York Yankee catcher savior. And then he batted 160.
You cannot compare Peraza and Higgy. Stop it now.
Comparing them.
Brian, what do you say?
I think it's an error, but I think you do have a pop at it being ahead. Might be one of them little bloopers, little broken bat, little dunkers right into right field kind of thing. I think it's got to pop if IKF does continue to hit 100 off of what is left of teams starting rotations for spring training while everybody's at the WBC.
Fair enough. All right, my next one. Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer will combine for 50-plus starts this year. Hit or error?
Error.
I got it as a hit.
Verlander,
since the surgery, hasn't had big. He hasn't really been hurt. Now I get it. He's pushing. He's 40. He's pushing 40. Scherzer's 41. Going to be 42. I get it, but their history, other than Scherzer last year having a couple of stints on there. I mean, if you think that Verlander's going to get 30 starts, you don't think Scherzer can get 20?
No, it's not that I don't think Scherzer can get. It's not that I don't think Verlander could get. I don't think Verlander is going to get 30. I think. Listen, there is only 1 or 2 pitchers I can think of off the top of my head that have still pitched into their 40s and had pitched over 20 innings. And the first 2 I can think of are Randy Johnson and Jamie Moyer. Those are the first 2 more recent pitchers that have pitched over the age of 40 and probably had 20 consecutive.
And you know what? Justin Verlander is in way better shape and a way better conditioned athlete than either one of them ever was.
I'm going to be honest. Scherzer getting hurt twice last year over kind of not crazy injuries is going to play a factor into that 50-inning thing.
Oh, absolutely. I can see you doubting Scherzer because over the last few seasons, he's given reason for doubt. I don't doubt Verlander will hold up his end of this.
Right. But here's the thing, though, too. Weren't there talks about Mets possibly doing, like, once in a while a 6-day?
I did, yeah, but what they're looking into, and I actually heard this today, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, they have a couple of streaks where they go 22 games in 23 days.
And going to 6 men.
17 games in 19 days. Like, in those type of situations. As of right now, they're not looking into doing it permanently. And I don't think the Mets are good. As long as they're pitching well as long as they're pitching to the back of their baseball card, I don't think the Mets are going to really do anything to disrupt Verlander and Scherzer.
Absolutely not.
I don't think those guys. I think this is more to get Senga an extra day,
Right.
to maybe get Quintana an extra day when he comes back. Maybe get Peterson and McGill some inning. Like, I don't think that Verlander and Scherzer are really going to feel much effects of that, if any. You may see them affected if they go 8 or 9 innings in a start. Maybe they'll get an extra day the next time, something like that. I don't see it regularly affecting those two guys.
Okay, fair.
All
okay.
right. Here's the next one. At least one of the Yankees' infamous 3, IKF, Hicks, or Donaldson, will be traded before opening day. Hit or error?
Error.
I'm going to say
wow.
error.
Yeah,
Too.
You're right, Lou. You're right. I am handsome. You want to know why that's an error, by the way? Because nobody's going to want them.
He wants them.
Yeah. Nobody wants them.
I don't know. There's a lot of
injuries. Donaldson at third base right now. Who's going to take IKF at shortstop? Who's going to take hits in the outfield? Nobody's going to want those guys.
I'm not saying all 3.
No, any one of them. But I could say I would agree with your statement if you said would either be traded or not necessarily on the opening day roster. I would say you had a better chance at that. But to one of them is going to be traded before the start of the season, that would take a monumental effort by another team, and they would have to have a ridiculous amount of injuries at a certain position, whether it be shortstop or third base, in order to want to even pick up the phone and call Brian Cashman.
I mean, you couldn't see the Dodgers with what they have going on right now taking IKF.
No. You want to know why? I don't think it's going to be one of those David Justice, Oakland Athletic, New York Yankee things where they pay half his salary and you take David Justice.
But guys, and you also have to remember something too. If somebody thinks they could get something out of Josh Donaldson, it's 1 year and it's just money. The Dodgers saved plenty of it this year. So no, it wouldn't shock me
But the Dodgers aren't going to want to change the culture in that clubhouse the way Donaldson does. The Donaldson. They wanted to change it.
Before he beat the shit out of a woman, they kept him just fine. He was a psychopath before he did that.
He just likes it rough in bed. Let's relax.
But that's more of an outside thing as opposed to constantly inside the locker room. Donaldson is not a guy I don't think you want to bring in to the same locker room as a Clayton Kershaw, the same locker room as a Mookie.
But at the same respect, you could
going to make waves in that locker room.
You know what? At the same respect, they could look at it and go, "That won't happen in my clubhouse because of a Clay." The Yankees did it for years. The Yankees brought in Jose Canseco. And why did the Yankees? Number one, it was to keep him away from the Red Sox. But they turned around and went, "We have Jeter, we have Posada, we have Bernie. It's not going to happen here." And it didn't. They trusted their guys to take care of it. There's guys like Josh Donaldson in every locker room, in every sport, whether we know it or not.
I understand your point, Billy, but I think the risk is too great and the reward is not nearly enough. It's not like you're parting the Red Sea to get Frank Robinson in his prime, who happens to have a little bit of an attitude in the locker room. You're getting Josh Donaldson, a 220 hitter from last year, who makes way too much for the amount of production he's giving you. I just don't see it.
It wouldn't shock. It could go either way. I'm being honest. It wouldn't shock me. Speaking of MVP, on to my next statement here. Pete Alonso will be the 2023 NL MVP. Hit or error?
Brian, I'll let you answer this one first.
I'm going to say hit, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I really do think you're going to see probably a little bit of regression from Diaz. I mean, can you have a better year than he had last year as a closer? Probably not. He's going to be counted on more now than he was last year, than he was 2 years ago. And I think he loves it. I do. I mean, you see him in stuff like the home run derby. Is there pressure there? I mean, you're batting. You're literally the only thing on TV, sports-wise, the entire country for that night, and he just loves it. He loves the pressure. He's a proven RBI machine from last year. I mean, if Paul Goldschmidt didn't have the type of year that he had, along with, and he's got Nolan Arenado in his lineup protecting him. If you get any of these guys to protect Alonso a little bit in that lineup, I 100% think he can be the NL MVP this year.
Lou, what do you think?
I'm going to say error, and not because I am disagreeing with Pete Alonso not having a great year. There are just 4 names that I can think off the top of my head who I think could have a better year than them, and that's Ronald Acuna Jr., that's Freddie Freeman, and that's the 2 Major League All-Star players on the St. Louis Cardinals, and Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. And I just think that Pete Alonso doesn't have enough help as far as, listen, I know he's an RBI machine. You're 100% right on that. But the problem with Pete Alonso is that if he's not the one producing the RBIs, it seems like the Mets just don't win. And in a lineup where you do have backup, it's a little less pressure, in my opinion. And I think that's why those 4 guys have a little bit of a better chance, because I think they're on a little bit also better of a well-balanced offensive team.
All right, we're going to see how it plays out.
What about you, Billy?
I think it's going to happen.
You think it is?
I think Pete Alonso is going to take that next step and become be in the top 1% of baseball players.
You got Bryce Harper. You have Bryce Harper too. Remember that? You got Bryce Harper.
Harper's not coming back to possibly the All-Star break.
Bryce Harper's not winning an MVP. I'm just saying, in general, you have guys like Juan Soto, Manny Machado. You still got those guys too.
I feel like a lot of times guys like that on a team like that, they cancel each other out. Like, how do you call him the most valuable player in that lineup? Like, barring
didn't matter to Goldschmidt last year, but
barring something crazy. But again,
that's a different story.
Yeah, but he put up the numbers.
Yes. I don't know if he's going to be it though.
We'll see. The final one. Anthony Volpe will make his major league debut in 2023, and he will be in the major leagues to stay. Hit or error? I'm not saying opening day. I'm saying during the 2023 season.
That's a good one.
And he'll stay?
And
he will be here to stay.
Error. Just because I've seen it before. If he doesn't have a good start the first 10 to 15 games, they're going to send him back down, and then you won't see him until September. That's just what they do. And I hate it. I don't think 10 to 15 games in the major leagues is justifiable enough to let somebody get at bats. They have to play for a long period of time. And the Yankees don't like to wait. That's the problem. They don't like to fucking wait.
Brian, what do you think? I'm going to let you answer before I do.
I'm going to say this. I'm 50-50 on this, and I'm going to tell you why. I think he's got the talent to stay. But in Lou's defense of what he said, Boone's job is always going to be on the line, right? I mean, if this kid comes up and the team's not winning and maybe he struggles a little bit, I can see him going right back to his guys, right back to Donaldson, right back to IKF, and those guys, and trying not to piss off, upper management and stuff like that. That's the only thing. But I think he has the talent to stay once he gets here? Yes, I do. 100%. But he's going to have to be as good as advertised from the get-go, from the second he gets called up, in order to stay for the entire season. That's just my opinion.
See, I agree with what both of you guys are saying.
But I think he does. I think he has the talent.
I get both of your points. I just feel that if he gets called up, they're going to give him a shot. The Yankees have passed on a plethora of shortstops in the last 2 off seasons because they were all in on these 2 kids. Right. I don't believe you're going to see either of them on the major league roster this season without being given a real opportunity.
Fair point. Guys, I got to go. Unfortunately, I have my dark tonight, but.
All right.
Brian, we'll see you soon. All right, gentlemen.
Yep.
Don't make my bets too much while I'm gone, all right?
All right, no problem.
All right, Lou, we're going to finish this up with the brushback pitch. We're going to come in here, we're going to throw out brushback pitches, and we're going to see how they play out. I'm going to let you go first on this one. Give me a brushback pitch going into the 2023 season, my man.
If the Yankees do not win the World Series, Aaron Boone will not be the coach next year. That's my part. The reason why, and listen, I know we've talked about Aaron Boone a bunch. I know that he's just the manager and he gets told a lot upstairs. But I think it's one of those scenarios where, listen, Aaron Boone has been the manager for the Yankees for a long period of time now, and he hasn't even reached the World Series. I think there will be. I know we signed him to a 3-year deal. Whatever that 3-year, $30 million, whatever the hell we signed Aaron Boone to. I honestly feel that if the Yankees do not go or win, I'm going to say win. If the Yankees do not win the World Series this year, I really don't think Aaron Boone is going to stay as a New York Yankee.
Now, I'm going to ask you, what are you seeing that makes you believe that? Because all I've seen is the blind loyalty here. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
But why is my question. What have you seen that you believe they're suddenly going to change their stance?
This is how I see it. What is the definition of insanity? Doing the same things over and over and over again and expecting the same results, right? But expecting different results.
You learned that in one of your textbooks, didn't you?
I sure did. Right. So here's the thing. If you're not going to get rid of players, right, which the Yankees already don't do, right? They don't just drop people. They keep the people that they sign for long periods of time. They don't really trade. They trade their farm system way more than they've traded people that are on the actual team. I don't see it continuing to have Aaron Boone as the coach when you haven't even reached the World Series with him in 6 years. I think there just needs to be a change of scenery. Listen, Buck Showalter came to the Mets last year, and they had one of the best seasons that they had with a very similar lineup that they had from the year before. They added only a few little pieces. You had Lindor on the team already. You had Alonso on the team already. I really just think that sometimes you just need another head person in charge. And I think the Yankees, knowing, especially since they haven't even been to a World Series with Aaron Boone yet, I just think it might be time to have someone new in that locker room.
I agree with 99% of your statement. The 1% that I disagree with is there is no shot if the Yankees make the World Series that Aaron Boone will be replaced.
Yeah, I mean,
they're not. If they make the World Series, they took a step.
No, okay. So you know what? I'll rephrase my statement there. If they don't make the World Series, I think Aaron Boone won't be the Yankees manager next year.
And I'm not saying you're wrong for feeling that way. I'm just saying, knowing how they operate and knowing the mindset, knowing everything we've heard out of the organization over the last few years, at the end of every season, when Aaron Boone's job is spoken about, I don't believe if he makes a World Series, win or lose, that he won't be here. I believe that he makes a World Series, he's back.
Right. No, I can agree with you on that, Billy. And the one thing I will say too is that what I think is going to play a big factor is now that Aaron Judge is officially the captain of the New York Yankees, I'm expecting Aaron Boone to rely a lot on Aaron Judge to set the precedents in that locker room for him. I'm not saying that the players don't respect Aaron Boone. I'm just saying that after 6 or 7 years of being the Yankees head coach, that if you don't even make it to the World Series,
you got to see progress. I get progress. It. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to give you my brushback pitch here. There's not going to be much of a conversation on it because there's no way you're not going to agree with me, and anybody in their right mind's not going to agree with me, to be honest with you.
Right.
My brushback pitch here is I am not going to believe that either New York team is committed to these young guys they have until I see at least one get a genuine opportunity to play. We hear that the Mets, we're going to sign free agents, we're going to spend money, but we want to build our farm system. We want to grow our core. We want to be like the Dodgers and the Braves. I haven't seen it yet. All I did was spend the last hour with the two of you talking about why they're not going to play the young kids, why the Yankees aren't going to play the young kids, why IKF and Hicks are going to have jobs over Peraza and Cabrera. I'm not going to believe they're committed to these kids and that they really believe these kids are the future till I see one get a real chance.
Right, and I agree with you, Billy. I couldn't agree with you more because they're not getting those chances. The fact that we're still talking about Alvarez and Volpe and Cabrera not being in that starting lineup, or at least being in the dugout with them, it's very concerning to me, because they, like you said, they talk about the farm system, how they want to build things up, but you know what? Like I mentioned earlier, they're going to trade probably their whole farm system for somebody big, at least in the Mets organization, if they are close to feeling that they can win a World Series this year.
I mean, the Yankees had no choice but to bring Donaldson back. He's under contract. Same with Hicks.
Right.
IKF, they spent $6 million. And I'll be honest with you, if IKF ends up as a bench player on this team, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
I have no issue with that. And
Yeah.
for $6 million in this day and age is not a tremendous amount of money for a bench player. The things that I don't get when it comes to these two teams, with what the Mets have, why the hell did they bring Vogelbach back?
I don't get it either.
Why couldn't you give Beatty that shot at that job?
Right.
I don't understand.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's not like Vogelbach wowed us last year.
No.
Right? So why are we not giving the young kid a shot?
The difference between the two is IKF can be a utility infielder. He's not really standing in the way of Peraza winning the job.
Right.
Vogelbach's got that left-handed hitting DH job as long as he's on that roster, because he's got no value as a pinch hitter, because with the DH, there's no pinch hitter anymore. Right. Very rare.
Right. Right. No, I agree with you. And I would love to see them use their farm system, because look how many great players the Braves have put up in the last 3 years. Most of them being all-stars. It's crazy because they gave them a chance.
I mean, we might see the Braves do it again this year. The Braves let Dansby Swanson go. Vaughn Grissom's probably going to win the shortstop job, and they're just going to go out and do it again. But guys, that is our show for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get in the Facebook group. We're back every week at 7 p.m. We will see you next Monday. Lou, say what you got to say, brother.
Guys, I can't wait to be with you guys every week. Let's look forward to a great baseball season. I can't wait to argue with more than half of the Met fans on the page. Let's have a great year. And listen, at the end of the day, we're all New Yorkers. Let's hope both teams are successful. Let's hope both teams are doing the right things by the fans. And let's have an amazing year, Billy. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait till it starts.
Absolutely. And just so everybody knows, I will keep track of these hits and errors so I can go back at these bozos and tell them I was right and they were wrong. But guys,
I picked everything as an error. I picked everything.
I know you did. I feel a lot more confident knowing that, by the way. Guys, enjoy your week. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you next Monday, and have a good evening.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks. Let's go, Yankees.